The sun crests the horizon like a blade, slicing through the early morning mist that hovers over the African plains. Light spills across the savanna, revealing a living world forged in fire, blood, and silence. Herds of antelope stir cautiously, their ears twitching with every rustle in the tall grass. A crocodile slips beneath the surface of a muddy riverbank. In the shadows of a stand of acacia trees, a shape moves low to the ground. Not a lion, not a leopard. Something else. It is not the apex predator, not yet, but it is something new, something calculating, something watching. It is human, or rather, it is becoming human.
This is the world 2.1 million years ago, a time of transformation, of dangerous experiment, of evolutionary tension. A time when the earliest members of the genus Homo walked the earth, upright, tool-bearing, meat-hungry. These were not our direct ancestors in the modern sense, but they were our pioneers. They were explorers of fear, of fire, of violence. And in this unforgiving world, they began to hunt. The first human hunters were not kings of the food chain. They were small, vulnerable, and easily killed. Big cats, giant hyenas, enormous raptors, all more dangerous, more practiced. So what gave them an edge? Why did they survive when others vanished into the fossil record? The answer begins not with weapons, but with vision. They could see patterns in the chaos. They remembered, they learned, they passed ideas between one another. And slowly, brutally, they became predators. It began with scavenging, carcasses left behind by lion prides, bones gnawed to the marrow by hyenas. And yet, still something remained. Joints full of collagen, marrow deep within femoris, soft organs not worth a predator's time. The first humans approached cautiously, watching vultures and jackals. With stone flakes, they carved what others had left. But scavenging has its limits. It is dangerous. It is desperate. And so, eventually, the hunters emerged.
They moved in small bands, maybe 10 to 15 individuals. They tracked animals across vast distances. They used sight, smell, memory, primitive as it may have been, to follow trails. Theirs was not the sprint of the lion, nor the pounce of the leopard. It was the long, grinding endurance of persistent hunting. Under the blistering sun, Homo erectus and his kin followed wounded animals for miles. When the sun cooked the savanna, their prey overheated, collapsed. And then came the kill. Not always with elegance, not always cleanly, but always with intention. This is the true beginning of the human predator. Not domination by force, but domination by outlasting. But make no mistake, this was a world soaked in danger. A misstep meant death. A lone hunter, separated from the group, might be ambushed. Fossil sites show human remains with tooth marks, skulls punctured by saber-toothed cats, femurs split by carnivores. To survive, early humans became more than individuals. They became teams. Some flushed animals from thickets. Others waded with stones. Some learned to throw, not with the grace of a javelin, but with enough force to drive a frightened boar into the arms of others. Spears came later, but cooperation, that was already here.
And with cooperation came something else: strategy. They learned to read terrain. They used rivers and cliffs to trap. They anticipated the movements of their prey. This was not mindless savagery. It was tactical, calculated, a slow collective intelligence rising from hunger. Their tools, too, became sharper, more refined. The Oldoan toolkit gave way to Atulean hand axes, versatile, symmetrical, devastating. With these, they could butcher quickly, process meat before hyenas arrived. Time mattered. So did efficiency. So did teaching. And teach they did. Elders showed youth how to strike stone, how to listen for hooves in the distance, how to read broken branches and fresh scat. This was culture, primitive and unspoken, but real, passed from mouth to ear, hand to hand. They learned the seasons, when the rains would come, when the herds would move. They followed migrations. They adapted to change. And with every new lesson, they became more dangerous. Dangerous, not just to their prey, but to their rivals. Other hominin species existed then: Paranthropus, Australopithecus, even early Homo species. Some competed for the same resources, some fled, some were outcompeted, and some, perhaps, were hunted.
There is no direct proof of interspecies violence that far back. But we know this: humans are territorial. They defend resources. They form alliances. And when the stakes are survival, kindness fades. The first human hunters weren't noble. They weren't ethical. They were efficient. And in a world where every calorie counted, that efficiency turned into dominance. By 1.5 million years ago, the hunters had begun spreading out of Africa, across the Levant, into Asia. Their fire was not yet controlled, their shelters crude, but they carried with them the mind of a predator, a mind that remembered, planned, coordinated. They learned to anticipate the future, to store food, to protect the wounded, to return to favorable places and claim them. They had no language, but they had meaning. No maps, but they had memory. No gods, but they had fear and fire and hunger. And that was enough.
Picture this: a band of hunters crouched at the edge of a wide clearing. Ahead, a lone hartebeest limps, injured, dehydrated. It's mid-afternoon. The sun is unrelenting. The humans fan out silently, eyes fixed, breathing steady. They've been tracking this animal for hours. Their feet are blistered, thirst gnaws at them, but they wait. One of them creeps forward, raising a heavy rock. The animal bolts. The group explodes into motion. They don't chase with speed, they chase with endurance. Over the next hour, they push the hartebeest to its limit, never letting it rest, always within reach. Eventually, it staggers. One hunter moves close. A crude stone axe slams against bone. The animal collapses. This is not the hunt of the lion, fast, dramatic, final. This is the hunt of the human, slow, cruel, and absolutely inevitable. But the story doesn't end at the kill. Now comes the real work. The carcass must be opened before it rots in the heat. Meat stripped, marrow extracted, organs sorted. Nothing is wasted. Hands work in rhythm, blood on skin, stone tools clacking. Even children help, gathering firewood, driving away scavengers. They move quickly. Vultures are already circling. In the distance, a hyena watches. They've won today, but they must eat fast.
As night falls, they huddle in a dry ravine, backs to a wall. They have meat. They have each other. One of the elders begins to mimic the chase, arms flailing, reenacting the kill. The children laugh. The adults grunt in approval. This, too, is a kind of language, a kind of memory, a way to pass on the story of survival. And so, around bones and laughter, something ancient and invisible takes root: tradition. There will be failures, there will be deaths, but there will also be another morning, another trail to follow. Because now the hunters have tasted victory, and they will not go back. From these early moments came the building blocks of all that followed. The logic of hunting became the logic of war. The sharing of food became the seed of social bonds. The memory of one hunt became the blueprint for 1,000. It would be hundreds of thousands of years before true weapons were carved, before fire was mastered, before language bloomed fully. But already the gears were turning. Already humanity had stepped onto the path of the predator and found that it liked the view. They became not just dangerous, they became inevitable. And it all began not with dominance, but with persistence, with the decision to follow, to chase, to endure, to hunt.